to the Past the Wire office, war room, and studio all rolled up into one, and we're back. We are back doing videos. A lot of you asked about them and inquired when we were going to be doing them, when we were going to get back to it. So we are back to work with the videos. We've just had so many other projects with the website and everything else we're involved in that it's kind of pushed these to the back burner, but we are going to be doing our videos with regularity going forward, and we've got another surprise for everybody from Past the Wire coming out very soon this week that we think a lot of you are going to enjoy and get a lot out of. Today, it's the Monday evening after the Belmont Stakes 2020. Different Belmont Stakes than we've seen in a long time. Different distance, one turn, no fans, out of sequence from the Triple Crown. And I like to wait a couple of days after these races are run and let them sink in and digest them before I have any knee-jerk reactions to, who ran big, who didn't run so good, and, just how these races shake out. And I've got some thoughts that we'll talk about, and I think that there is some benefit to be had from observing this Belmont Stakes Day card carefully, which I think we've done. Now, a couple of years ago, I wrote a column on Past the Wire called To Be or Not to Be. And I'm going to put a link to that article in the comments of this video, so if you haven't read it or you want to read it again, if you're so inclined, you'll be able to find it easily. And the column was about a true bias and a false bias and how to identify both and when to and how to capitalize on spotting a true bias. And one of the biggest mistakes that handicappers make and fans make is a couple of races go wire to wire and everybody starts screaming, oh, speed bias, track bias, and sometimes they're right, sometimes they're not. Sometimes those horses were alone on the lead. Sometimes they were the best horse. Sometimes, things just went their way. A couple of years ago, there was a true bias on Belmont Stakes Day, and when a lot of those horses ran back, we made a lot of money off them, and people on Past the Wire tracking trips will remember that. We had a great run with that, capitalizing on that Belmont Stakes Day bias with a lot of those horses that ran back, betting some of them, betting against some of them, and knowing which ones and which ways to go. And we'll talk a little bit about that because there was, it's no secret, there was a true bias on Saturday for that card. And if you capitalize on it, identify it, and see who ran with it, who was aided by it, who ran against it, and, had a lot to overcome, I think there are opportunities to make money going forward. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and we'll identify some horses that I think are, good bet against going forward, and maybe one or two will come up that might be a good one to look at in the future. We'll start with the second race on the card. We'll talk a little bit about the Woody Stephens. No Parole, lights out. Everybody's talking Breeders' Cup Sprint for this Louisiana bred, after he smoked that field. But let's take a step back and look at it, okay? We now know that it was a lightning fast track, lightning fast. It was very, very kind to speed. And frankly, the track at Belmont had been kind to speed all week if you have been watching. So the fact that it was speed-friendly and speed-favoring on Saturday shouldn't have come as a surprise, but in fact it was. Now, No Parole ran fast, no question about it. The other speed did not get out. Luis Saez, was it Luis Saez? Yeah, he put him on the lead from the rail, and lights out, race over, game, that was it. And, time was fast, off the screen winner. Echo Town come for second, but never really pressed him early. Mischievous Alex didn't press him early. The closers, Maru and Shoplifted, were really, really up against it with the way the track was and the way the race played. And, this to me, off a huge, monstrous effort like that, he's probably going to get a really good number on the sheets and probably a really good buyer number for those of you that pay attention to buyer numbers. I don't. I look at Thoroughgraph, but he's going to get a fast number. It's going to be a fast race, and I don't know that he's going to do it next time. To me, he's got all the indicators of a bet against, especially if he winds up in a race with other speed. he's liable to regress off the big effort when he gets challenged, and maybe gets on a track that's not so speed favoring. That race is going to get brought back down to reality, and I don't think that was the reality what we saw on Saturday from No Parole. Very fast horse, and when he gets out on the lead, no question he can roll, but is he a bet next time? Let's see where he winds up, and let's see if his pattern is that of a horse that's going to regress and bounce, or maybe run back to reality after being so aided by a track that was really, really to his liking and a pace scenario that worked out perfectly for him. So, inflated race in my opinion, and we'll see how that plays out going forward. And a big part of that, Tom Amos is a sharp conditioner. He's going to give the horse the right time, probably find the right spot, but some things are tough to overcome. So I'm going to be a little skeptical about him going forward, especially next time out. And the beauty of it is, most of these horses that we peg as possible bet against, they're going to be real short prices off these big races, because no matter how much we talk about it here and how people try and be objective, they see those kind of races in the form, and the average bettor is going to just gravitate right to those horses, right off those races. So we're going to have a built-in advantage there. They're going to be short prices. So if we're wrong and we lose to a short price, oh well, you live to fight another day, and you make the scores when you're right. And that's just how the game goes. The third race on the card was a non-winner of one. Chad Brown run a horse, Indian Pride. That horse was touted before she ever hit the racetrack as fast. Excellent horse, a lot of potential, and took a long time to get her back to the track after she won her debut, and then she went in a stake, probably got hurt, some kind of mishap, whatever it was, I don't know. But comes back off a layoff, smokes the field, under wraps, dragging Castellano to the lead. But the horse that ran really good was Shug's horse, Mrs. Danvers, who was also off a layoff, come from pretty far out of it, and finished really nice and really strong out in the middle of the track under Joel Rosario, in a race that she obviously needed. Shug is very, very patient, looks every bit of a stakes filly, and looks like she will benefit super off that track bias and running against it. And we'll see where she winds up, what kind of spot. I wouldn't be surprised if she goes into a stake. The tougher the spot, the better, as far as I'm concerned, because she's probably going to be sitting on a really, really big race off of that one. So I hope that they do, in fact, put her in a stake, and maybe you can get a price on her. The race that caught everybody's eye was the Acorn. Gamine run the fastest Acorn we've seen and run off the screen. And when a horse wins by as many lengths as she did, year down, no matter what the clock says, what the bias was, it's an impressive race. But I like to look for angles that maybe people might miss. And a couple of years back, Todd Pletcher won a race at Gulfstream with a filly named Dreaming of Julia. Run a monstrous number on the sheets. I don't remember what it was. Maybe a 3 negative, something crazy like that. Maybe even a 4 negative. I don't remember. But it was a monstrous number, and Gamine is going to get a monstrous number for her effort, which she probably deserves. But that said, Dreaming of Julia, in my opinion, was a classic bounce, classic bet against. Was lucky enough to back into Princess of Silmar that day in the Kentucky Oaks. Won at a big number. Dreaming of Julia got beat. Now, Dreaming of Julia did have a tough trip in the Oaks. I don't remember exactly what happened, but she either got off bad or something didn't go according to plan. But she didn't win, and she was a bet against off that big number. Gamine, all right, nobody's better than Bob Baffert at keeping a horse good, pointing for a race, and just getting him there and having him peak. But I can't imagine that wasn't her peak effort on Saturday. Had to be. Also aided by the track. The track bias helped, but she was ready. She smoked them. She came out, just awesome. No question about it. She going to be able to repeat that? Well, if it was anybody other than Bob Baffert, I'd probably say no. With him, I'm going to say we don't know. But she's going to be a really, really, really short price. Probably going to wind up in a 2-turn race, because where's she going to go? Saratoga, Kentucky, we'll see. Back to California. Wherever she goes, pointing for the Oaks, maybe the Preakness, there's going to be a good shot, 2 turns, This was a one-turn race. You know, very, very possible to regress, very, very possible to come back off that big number, and she might be a bet against at a very, very short price off that race next time, because you know she's going to be odds on. I don't care where they run her, you know, with a couple of spots the exception. So, you know, that's just something to watch. Everybody else looked like they were in a different race. I would take a horse like Perfect Alibi, who was coming off a big layoff. I'm not sure where that horse is going to fall in as far as how far she wants to go. Maybe it looks like a 7/8, 1 mile horse, maybe a little longer with a one-turn situation like at Belmont. But she was against the bias. She was wide, made a little bit of a move, probably needed the race, but probably couldn't show her best because of that bias against her. So she's probably one I would peg to watch going forward, and she may improve significantly in that second start off the layoff. So that's a horse I would pay attention to. Pleasant Aube, who was a very long price in the Acorn, and that was probably shorter than she wanted to go, is another one that I would watch coming out of that race. Now, the big dance, the Belmont Stakes. Tiz the Law did what most people, myself included, expected him to do. He's been consistently faster than the competition in that race, consistently classier than the competition in that race since he was 2. Probably would have been undefeated if he didn't get trouble in the Kentucky race in the slop. So it is what it is. Now, perfect trip on Saturday, well drawn outside the speed, and in that race he was close enough to be considered a stalker, and the speed just wasn't good enough to go that day. You know, Tap It to Win was not going to beat Tiz the Law on Saturday. Just wasn't going to happen, even with a track bias. Tiz the Law was too good and too close to him and was able to inhale him, put everybody else away. A horse that I would peg coming out of that race was Max Player, who was off a significant layoff, couple of months, came from pretty far out of it, was running okay at the end, and you know, probably needed the race and was against the bias. Definitely one to watch going forward, in my opinion. Tiz the Law is pointing for the Travers. I hope we get a big field in the Travers, because I would peg him as a possible bet against next time out. Reason being, he's pointing for the Kentucky Derby. So is Barkley Tagg, who's a patient, crafty guy, going to have him 100% for the Travers? I don't know. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But it's not the main goal. The main goal, they want to win the Derby. Now, I know Saratoga Stables, they're Saratoga people. They love the Travers. They're going to want to win it. I'm not saying they don't. But it's not the goal. Their goal is the Kentucky Derby, and with that horse. And I think that this time of year and that time of year, Travers a little earlier this year, early August, I think there is a good chance that some of these horses that have not been as fast and not been as mature and seasoned and as good as Tiz the Law are going to have a chance to catch up. And he's going to have to maintain that great form he's had since he's 2 for a long time. And it's going to be tough for him to do that as a 2-year-old, his whole 3-year-old campaign, Florida, Belmont Stakes run out of order, you know, then the Travers, Kentucky. So I think they're going to be a little cautious with him, trying to get him to peak and be right as Dodgers for that Kentucky Derby. So I think there's a good chance off the, you know, track bias aided win, and the way the schedule is and everything going, and the chance for some of those 3-year-olds to catch up, that he's another one who will be a very, very short price that it may pay to take a look against in the Travers if we get the right kind of field and the right kind of pace and a big enough field. So those are my quick Belmont Stakes Day takeaways, and hopefully you'll take a look at that to be or not to be article, you know, get a handle on what a true bias is, what a false bias is, and I think there was, you know, a true bias on Saturday, favoring speed, and I think there are going to be plenty of horses that will compromise by it and that, you know, you could bet back or bet against. We didn't talk about them all here, but we talked about a couple of, you know, ones that jumped right out at me anyway. So Track and Trips and Past the Wire, both will have more information on this as we go forward and as those races come around and unfold. So if you're so inclined, take a look. Wish everybody the best. Happy to be back in the War Room office studio, all rolled up into one. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back with more videos and some more surprises coming soon. So thanks again, and ciao.